Hey the rulers, DMO73 here, bringing you a feature match today between Garreth Spencer and his Red Order Alice versus Paul Reisman on Niklaus Tina. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists,
as well as our guest lecturer members Vite Ramen and Darren Noblock.
Class is in session.
So here we are, rulers. Before we get into it though, just a reminder that Judgment of the Rogue Planet is coming up very soon. It did have its date pushed back 1 week, so it's now releasing on December 1st, but you can still get your pre-orders through Odyssey Games. The link is in the description. You are not going to want to miss this set. It is going to be incredibly awesome, and I cannot wait to see all the crazy deck builds that come out of it, as well as the new extension rule. So yeah, definitely be sure to go pick up those pre-orders. So here we have Garreth Spencer on the left playing a Red Order Alice. It is kind of more of a rushdown, relying less on Ayu and more Pricia, a true duelist. And Paul is playing Niklaus Tina. It is a flower deck that is supported by the draw power and some protection from the white cards in terms of like things like Intimidate or the token generator to be able to put up some blockers and keep yourself alive until you can get the flowers set up, as well as white having a good flower in general that also generates a blocker here. So opening hand here, you see probably going to see those two Dark Alices shipped away here. Not going to come down until turn 2 at the earliest. And even just in general against Paul, it might not be very good. You see there is that Regalia Beast, which is a solid turn play. We do have a Pricia's True Duelist, and we have a Last Secret Sword to be able to have reach. Question here is, what is Paul going to ship away? Getting rid of a couple of the Enchanting Sortier there, which is an interesting choice. I would think that we would want to try to play that to set up our flowers for like a Super Bloom, but I'm curious how many Super Blooms Paul is playing in this list. Going to see a draw for turn. We do see a Regalia Horn of the Sacred Beast come down here to help be able to potentially hit a Ruler's Memoria, but we do hit turn 1 Ragstone, which is not great, but it does help here in general of like next turn we'll be able to call stone and then flip, so be able to support going into a 2-drop order with still some good interaction. I'm not going to pop the coin in order, maybe considering popping the coin in order to play Regalia Beast. Oh, yep, there it's going to come down. We do see the Regalia Beast come in here, picking the attribute of fire, which makes sense. The more burn package that is playing here. Paul's going to go ahead and use a really good use of enchanting words here. We're going to put that back on the bottom of the deck, or back on the top of the deck, and then get to go search for a flower. So this is really nice. We kind of essentially time walked Garreth a little bit in the sense that he's just going to draw right back into that same Regalia Beast, and it's not going to produce him any will. It got Garreth to burn the coin. Garreth will be going to a maximum of 2 will on his turn 2, and Paul will have 2 will of potential interaction if he chooses not to play anything during his turn, which is very possible as the blue-white kind of reactionary deck. Do get that flower that helps tap stuff down. If we could get a contract, that flower becomes a lot better because we can kind of quick cast it in, quick cast the flower in, and then tap something down. So we'll see what the follow-up is here. That Regalia Beast is back in Garreth's hand. Gonna get a free Stone Call. I imagine there's probably not much of a reason to go ahead straight into an ordered Pricia True Duelist here, but you could just try to slam it, say, hey, there's an open board, let's go for it, try to get some damage in, potentially 4 swings, off of the Pricia. We do see that True Duelist come into play here. Gonna get to generate another Regalia and draw a card. Paul's gonna go ahead and respond to, before the Regalia activation hits, we're gonna go ahead and do Flashing Smile. This isn't really gonna help him avoid the 2 rolls from Pricia. There will still be, it's based on the number of Regalia that are there at resolution, so there will still be 2. But it does get the Pricia off board so that he doesn't get taken down for a free full swing. I think that was maybe a little bit unnecessary here. They're doing a roll here. That's evens, by the way, are just going to be burned to board. It should actually be a second roll here because it's based on the number of Regalia at resolution. I think playing the Regalia to flash in and tap down Pricia might have been the better option here. It also sets up Paul for a better, more follow-up turn and leaves him with only 1 will as opposed to 2. Because the main point there was to not get attacked by Pricia and then have her swing and trigger and hit you again with her ability. But tapping her down with the flower would work just the same. So we're just going to see a call stone and a pass from Paul, playing very reactionary. Couple flowers in hand. We do see he does have a Regalia here. Do see that Ruler's Memoria come down. A Gleipnir to be able to help refuel the guards, as well as we do have that Deep Blue, which is a great easy order target for Order Alice, being able to generate essentially 2 Regalia, draw a card, and be able to banish and set up another order later. This would be pretty solid. We are going into a 3 cost here, just choosing to hard play Ray Asnable. This is an interesting choice. I don't think there's much in the way of, I mean, it does stop the flowers from having their enter effect. It does also stop the contract from having its enter effect. Paul should be responding to this. Choosing to use Enchanting Sortier. We're going to look at the top 3, 1 in hand, the other 2 in graveyard. That is a flower. Interestingly, choosing to grab the Yggdrasil, I would think we would want to grab the flower there. I mean, Super Bloom setup potentially. You could certainly, in response, still, before everything resolves, drop that Plur and be able to get a free flower into the field, but ultimately Paul just choosing to do it after the Ray Asnable, I guess. Does get 2 flower tokens or 2 fairy tokens off of Virtuous Crusade. That gets to draw into turn. Now we are going to 4 stones, so if we can get 1 more flower, we can go ahead and go into contract, which would be really helpful here. Would set us up for Niklaus being able to start flying in the air, and all of our flowers suddenly getting a lot better. And a Super Bloom being potentially lethal. Really just feels like we could have... The Yggdrasil doesn't make a ton of sense here because it won't be able to get us to search. We don't have a way to get the Ray Asnable. We're going to just smart by moving into combat, which makes sense. Just hitting for 8 in the air. And then... potentially passing. I do think there is a world where we would want to try to contract this turn if able, even if it means just losing a flower, simply because Niklaus will be an 8/8 fly or 10/10 flyer. Our flowers suddenly get quick cast, they're 10/10 bodies. It gives us a much better position to be able to interact during Garreth's turn, just to be able to threaten with more cards in our hand. Playing this flower, it's not going to do anything at this point in time. But it does get us up to 6 flowers total because the Regalia is also a flower, thus getting us to Niklaus, the enchanting boy, who is a 1,000 barrier flyer, and now all of our flowers are quick cast 10/10 flyers, which is just really, really good. In this matchup, dealing with Pricia True Duelist, having a flying barrier is really, really nice to make sure that Pricia is never going to get to double trigger. You do have to be a little bit more cautious about the fact that her enter effect will trigger and hope that there's not so many Regalia that you lose your board. But if the board is safe, then you at least have a way to make sure you don't get hit twice. Looking at the hand here for Garreth. Going into a Pricia, I think, is still the right call if we can get to it. The last Secret Sword's really not great here. We're still at 4,000 life, so that card's going to be kind of just a finish the game out reach kind of position. But also has to worry about things like Muse staring at if it's going to be paid for alternative cost, to make it so that it can't resolve, which would be really devastating because you'd still have paid cost by not paying the full will but sacrificing everything if you wanted to try to do free things. Looks like we are going to see that deep blue get ordered here. Getting to get 2 free Regalia and draw a card, 1 from deep blue and 1 from the order itself. Draw a card, seeing what we can draw into. Without access to something like Pricia, it's going to be difficult for Garreth to be able to get over this wall right now. Another deep blue just to get that last attribute Regalia token. That's all 5. A horn, looks like a Schrodinger's observation. No, a Schrodinger's call. and some discard, and then the last secret sword. So not much in hand there that's going to be able to impact. I mean, the Schrodinger's call will be able to deal with one of the flowers potentially, but certainly can't if Paul just quick casts in a bunch of flowers here, not even to get their effects, just to put thousand flyers onto the board like that. And heaven forbid if you had a deep blue or a super bloom, is representing 3,800 damage in the air right now to only 32. So this is pretty much over. Gonna take the 1,000, and then at this point in time, that should be the game because you don't have enough blockers. And so yeah, Garreth just scoops it up and says we can go into game 2. Flying flowers sometimes just get there. Don't really need the enter effects, although having them would have been nice. To be able to start tapping stuff down, especially the Pricia. There's a world where trying to, once the first Pricia comes down, prevent its first ability and then keep it tapped down forever, just so that there's not a redundancy of that over and over and over again, rather than being able to reorder it and reorder it and reorder it. Paul showing me the ridiculousness that is having all 4 of his regalia pre-mulligans. Choosing to ship all 4 of them, which feels incredible. Oh no, he shipped 3 of them. For a second there, I was going to be mad at Paul. I'm like, why are you shipping the regalia? You should keep at least 1. Does have the same kind of opening lines in the sense there, and Garreth having a very similar opening line as well in terms of regalia beast. Last secret sword looked like a Pricia, looked like a regalia. No opening regalia though, so this could be bad if there's not a top deck of a regalia. Oh, does hit the Ruler's Memoria. This is the unfortunate thing. There's a world where I think you might have just coined out the regalia beast before calling stone, just to make sure you have a regalia here. It gets you the same amount of will. Regalia beast comes down, gets to make red. The main reason why I think that might have been the better play line here is because if Paul has another one of those enchanting words, then we're going to be... Paul gets a free turn, right? As opposed to if we had coined out the regalia beast, then call stone, we would at least have 1 will to be able to play on with Paul's turn. Ultimately now, Paul just gets to kind of go in and do whatever he wants. I imagine we might see that flower that he just searched for get cast on turn 1. Because there's no way that a Pricia is going to get ordered this next turn, because you can't call stone then order. Like, it'll be tapped, and we don't have 6 Sages Stone anymore. So there's a very real world where, oh no, Paul's just going to choose to quietly pass it along. There is a world here where I think because of the regalia too, you could easily just cast in regalia, cheat that white flower and get a fairy, do Virtuous Crusade, put another fairy. That's 1,500 damage represented on board. So that might be the line that Paul is thinking of as well. Do get to see 2 more regalia tokens come out here. Draw into a second last secret sword, it looked like. Hitting Ragstone comes into play tapped. Paul gets another free turn, which is terrifying here for how much damage he might be able to put on board. We get the Star Scepter comes in here. In comes White Flary Flower. And then comes the Virtuous Crusade. Yeah, that's 1,500 going to be thrown at face because the flower is boosting everyone up by 100. Heaven forbid that there is a second flower in hand to be able to, a second different named flower in hand to be able to bump them up even further. That would be particularly devastating. Paul could also just be saving a bunch of will for that Flashing Smile. You do have the Tina contract, so you honestly could just contract Tina this turn too by flashing that in and just having Tina go in for the lethal. That might actually have been a better line here. Tina could quick cast in, you'd get another fairy that puts you to easily be able to contract. Suddenly the fairies are getting +3/+3, so you have this 21 damage represented with 2 other flyers still serving their purpose. get access to, you know, the meteor dive could go in for lethal there potentially. There's just a lot of aggression that could come out of there. Having the second contract is kind of brutal. I imagine if Paul doesn't get pressured too much this turn, that we might see that contract come down just to generate more bodies. It certainly would be how I would use that extra will to make it last and try to close this game out quickly, knowing that with more regalia, Pricia casting can just end the game. So we're going to go ahead and go in for a swing of 600 or 700. Does choose to take the damage, which I think is interesting. I feel like we would have quick cast in the flower. And then we're going to banish to be able to order again. In comes in that Pricia. That's going to get us our third regalia. We've got 4 of them at this point in time. That flashing smile is 100% going to come down here, and we're going to hope that it we're kind of hopeful that it hits more face than anything else. Even with it'll be 3 regalia at resolution. If all of them hit face, we get to keep the board. So this flashing smile, if this flashing smile gets to resolve, it'll clear the regalia beast off the board. It'll clear the Pricia off the board. If 2 of the 3, if even 3 of the things hit face of the 3, all 3, 1500, it still puts Paul at 1800, which means that Paul will survive even a last secret sword and then still have the board, and then the game is over, because we can also just flash encina at the end of the turn. We can contract it immediately. All of the tokens will be able to swing in. They'll all be 7s, and that's 2800 damage and the game's over. So the regalia beast will be out of the picture. That's not a problem. They're just sequencing here because don't forget, if there was already a fire regalia on board before the flashing smile resolves, technically you could tap the fire regalia to burn Paul for 5, so you'd go down to 28. But even then, 28, 1500 puts Paul at 13, so that even with that, a last secret sword isn't lethal. So pretty safe play here that Paul's probably not going to die. Seeing what the board is, that's board. We've seen a second board, that's face. Oh no, that's the second board. 3 hits the board, so nothing hit to Paul's face. Flashing smile is still going to resolve. The regalia beast actually does get to stay. I forgot, because banishing, it does have eternal this turn. So there should have been a 4th roll here, which is, just remember, because it's per regalia. And then here they're remembering, oh yeah, I could have burnt you for another 5. So taking Paul down to that 15, that 18, like we said before. We're going to go ahead and see an interesting choice to bottom deck the to top the regalia beast again. I think I still probably would have gone for contract over that. 1 fire will I don't think is something to be particularly afraid of, especially because you're going to probably throw a bunch of flyers in. But who am I? All right, 10,000 foot streamer view. Going into recovery here. 4 sea stone. Really just comes down to, can we protect our low life total from another Pricia? That's the biggest problem here, is like another Pricia True Duelist. We're hitting the point where it's an inevitability that she will kill you, because you just have so many regalia. You know, another deep blue. We're gonna go straight into contracts. We have Niklaus. One of these flowers can fly. It's an 11-11 because of the continuous ability. Actually, it's a 12-12 because each of the flowers is giving 1. So this flower will be able to swing it in for 12, takes down to 13. And then do we have something to be able to push that last 13 damage? Looks like no, unfortunately. Getting able to call a 4th stone thanks to Ragstone. All 3 Ruler's Memoria back to back. Paying in 3 to play a last secret sword, just hard cast a last secret sword. Paul does not have anything to be able to prevent that. No way to be able to protect himself. Just 1,000 damage to your opponent, goes down to 8, and then has the banish everything for the second last secret sword in hand. And unless Paul has Muse staring at, that will be the game. Does Paul have Muse? Does not. Extends it and it scoops it up, and we go to game 3. So really interesting use there of the last Secret Swords to close out the game. I mean, and Paul just not having the Muse staring at really made that unfortunate. Not a way to be able to prevent that from resolving. That would be kind of the only protection that Paul has from that ability, which, I mean, if he had it, that would have definitely been the game, and it would have been over for sure, because of all the used resources that came out of Garreth to be able to make that happen. Would have had 1 stone total, lost all of the regalia, would have been rough. Paul choosing to take the coin here. We do see that there is that Horn of the Sacred Beasts. Does hit Ruler's Memoria. Strong hand. The hand's not... Double Regalia Beast. Deep Blue Pricia is not insanely bad. It does make sense. Oh, especially once again, losing that... getting time walked there is real rough. It does take Paul's coin, though, so not as much to be able to play with. Next turn, we'll be able to go... it would have been nice next turn to be able to go order Pricia, then call Stone, because of the Regalia Beast. We won't be able to do that. I imagine that there's a world where we might see order Deep Blue, call Stone, Regalia Beast, to be able to set up for the following turn. That's a very real possibility. But it's not a really aggressive turn, so that does give Paul some chance to be able to set up something like the Virtuous Crusade beatdown or Fairies or something. Calling Stone, hits a, oh man, hits a Ragstone. I don't know why we called Stone there when we could have just ordered the Deep Blue and gotten 2 more Regalia. We are going to go ahead and play the Regalia Beast to try again, to try to ramp up. Hitting the Ragstone's not that bad. It kind of just does replace what we were doing before. Virtuous Crusade's going to come in here and get us 2 more Fairy tokens. Do get to start pressuring down with these Fairy tokens. They're so small that Pricia is probably going to kill them, so it's kind of worth it to just go in and be aggressive with them. Going in for 4, going in for 4, go down to 32, and then passing the turn there. We get to call Stone here. We are going into having 4 will because of the Regalia Beast. This sets us up to be able to play Deep Blue into a Pricia and really start to get aggressive. Because we'll be at 1, 2, 3, 4 Regalia when Pricia enters. You also can leave up the Regalia Beast. So like you can use your 2 stones to make Regalia, to make Pricia, and then leave up Regalia Beast, so it also just becomes an additional 500 damage. So not only are you getting 4 rolls, but you're also getting an extra 500 damage because you have 2 fire Regalia here. Now we're trying to play another Regalia Beast here, and then we're going to go ahead and order into the Pricia Dangerous Duelist. So this is a little bit, and we had an Excalibur in hand, which is ridiculous. Paul trying to cast Intimidate here. Keep in mind that Intimidate, I think this is just a play error from Paul's side. Intimidate doesn't stop damage from J-Rulers. It only stops damage from Resonators. So this Pricia is just going to hit like a truck. There are currently 6 Regalia on the field. So we get to roll 6 times and draw. And we just drew it to a last Secret Sword. So that, remember, odds is face. So that's field, that's field, that's field, that's field, that's field, and that's field. So Paul completely dodging the swing there, but ultimately this Pricia is just going to get to swing in for a grand total of 1,300 damage. It's going to hit face. We're going to roll it again. Paul recognizing that Intimidate is not Amaterasu's Foresight, and so he's just going to get absolutely blasted by this damage. So we get to go for another 13 damage. See how much is done here. That's 500, 1,000. Still 1,000. I think that's 1,500, and that's another 15. So whatever it is, I believe it takes him down to 700. I think at this point, I think it might have been 4 swings to face. No, it's just 3. Goes down to 1,200. Can tap the Regalia to burn him down to 700, and then has the last card in hand being Last Secret Sword, and that closes out the game. So there's the match. Hope you enjoyed it. Deck list up later this week. And until next time, this is TMO73 saying class dismissed.